Mike was born in the United States, but he grew up in Windsor, Ontario. Go Canada! He graduated from the University of Toronto with a Bachelor of Science degree. He spent 10 years working at the CBC, then 27 years as a union representative when unions were not bashed like today. Union representative for the Communications, Energy and Paperwork Union of Canada, CEP. He stood up for the rights of media workers across Canada, at the CBC and at numerous media outlets across Ontario, including the Toronto Star, Sing Tao, Korea Times, Now Magazine, and Metro newspapers. In 2000, he was chosen to participate in the prestigious Governor General's Canadian Study Conference, which brings together Canada's future leaders with the aim of broadening their perspective on work, leadership, their communities, and their country. In 2011, Mike Sullivan was elected as a Member of Parliament for York South-Weston, and let me add, under the Orange Wave. He was representing the New Democratic Party. He serves in Parliament on the Standing Committee on Transport, Infrastructure and Communities. Mike is the NDP's Deputy Critic for Persons with Disabilities and Housing, and is chair of the NDP's Rail Caucus. And without further ado, I welcome Honorable Mike Sullivan.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here listening to and following these amazing stories, and to be sitting amongst such a colorful crowd, I'm always pleased to meet with the Somali community, with the Ogaden community. My office, one of my staff is here, Faisal, some of you know him, who speaks Somali, is from Somalia, because it is such an important part of our riding. We're actually just north of the riding boundary, because the riding is south of the 401. But I'm really glad to be here and to listen to these amazing stories. As a Member of Parliament on the opposition benches, there's not a heck of a lot we've been able to do in the last year that we've been in Parliament, because the Conservative majority has decided that they don't want to have to listen to anybody, nor will they be interviewed, I don't think. I suspect you won't be able to interview John Baird about Canada's foreign policy, or even our new Minister of International Cooperation. Julian Fantino was appointed 2 days ago to replace Bev Oda. And I don't think Julian will be having any $12 orange juices anytime soon. The story of Ogaden is a story that I'm so glad I heard here again, because it puts your perspective on it. And your perspective is one, where's our moral compass? Where are we morally when we hear of even one death in another country, or even here in Canada? We are outraged. And when we hear of the outrageous atrocities that are happening in that part of Ethiopia by a government, no less, we just sit on our hands and do nothing. Why is that? What is wrong with our moral compass in our government, that we have not spoken up with outrage and challenged the government of Ethiopia and challenged their leaders to say enough is enough, this has to stop. We in the NDP would do that, but you have to wait till 2015 before we have the chance. Though there may be a couple of by-elections that we could use some help in very soon, one in Etobicoke Centre, one in Durham, because Bev Oda not only resigned as minister, but she has resigned her seat. So there will be an opportunity for the NDP to show its face again and to become even stronger in our parliament. But we have this mixed message for the rest of the world, that we care about some countries but not about others. We cared enough when the Soviet bloc disintegrated many years ago, now 25 years ago, was it? Something like that. That Canada sent lawyers to the newly forming countries in the east part of Europe to help them build their new laws, to help them build their constitutions, to help them become countries that Canada would do business with. How much of the same kind of help have we given in Africa? How much help did we give the new country of South Sudan? Nothing. Nothing extra. How much help did we give to the Ogaden? How much help have we given to the very poorest of the poor in the poorest nations in Africa? We have cut our budgets for help. We aren't expanding them. We aren't increasing them. We have lost our moral compass. If somebody asks us to go to war, if the United States asks us to go to war, really, in Libya or in Afghanistan, we're there. Now, we in the NDP believe in Nabad. Okay? And so it was very difficult for some of my colleagues to listen to our leader, Jack Layton, when he urged us to vote in favor of continuing the military expedition to Libya, because it was a UN-sponsored mission. It was the United Nations that had asked Canada to help, and Canada has a responsibility as a nation on this planet to help look after other nations on this planet. And so, although we are a peace-loving party, we do the right thing when it needs to be done. Does it need to be done to Iran? Does it need to be done to Ethiopia? Does it need to be done to Syria? Did it need to be done to Afghanistan? Did it need to be done to Iraq? These are very hard questions. You've given me lots of food for thought today about what's going on in Ethiopia, and I'm certainly going to investigate further. I am certainly going to try and find out as much as I can about what's really happening behind those closed doors. One of the things that has helped open the eyes of the world to the atrocities that go on in far-flung nations that we don't hear about has been Hollywood, believe it or not, has been the media, believe it or not. The media, and you don't have a lot of tattoos on you, do you? You don't have a dragon tattoo somewhere? No, it's okay. There's a book, A Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, but it's all about the media. Oh, yeah. You did have a tattoo. Yes, there you go. So BBC4 put together a documentary on the atrocities in Sri Lanka. And that documentary is making the rounds amongst parliamentarians all over the world to tell the story in visual terms of what's really happening in Sri Lanka. And I can't help but think, and Canada has reacted strongly to the, I don't know if they're going to pull out of the Commonwealth Conference in Sri Lanka, but they've threatened to, if these atrocities don't stop. So we are saying something, but there has been no Hollywood documentary or media documentary that shows what's going on in Ogaden, in the province, with your people. And maybe that's part of what needs to happen. The other things that the Sri Lankan folks here in Toronto did was they stood on the Gardiner and stopped all the traffic and got a lot of attention from this community, from the city of Toronto, and ultimately from Canada by doing what we Canadians do, and that's peaceful protest. We can draw attention to a lot of ills in this world with just peaceful protest. When I was a child growing up, my mother stopped buying grapes from California because peaceful protesters had convinced housewives all over Canada, and this is before any of you, most of you were here, that there was hardship coming to the farm workers, the migrant farm workers who came from Mexico. They were being treated badly, they were being paid dirt, and that those grapes that were picked with blood in Southern California were coming to Canada. So Canadians stood in solidarity with the migrant farm workers in Southern California and stopped buying grapes. And all of a sudden, it was an international story, an international incident. And all of a sudden, there was a resolution in Southern California, and they started treating those people better. Simple things can make a huge difference. I'm not sure what the simple thing is that's going to draw attention to this circumstance, but trust me, it will seem like you should have thought of it years ago when you finally figure it out. And we in the NDP will be there to help. If we're in government, you know we'll do whatever government is supposed to do. The moral compass will be pointed in the right direction. While we're in opposition, we yell and scream and poke and prod and make noise. We can't actually affect things directly, though we have had a couple of successes. But we make a lot of noise so that Canadians across the country understand what's at stake. So that Canadians across the country understand that the budget we just passed is devastating to our ecology. And that budget was passed in the name of oil. And I heard my colleague from Sweden tell us that she's been following the path of oil too. It's exactly what's leading us down all of these paths. Wherever, look at South Sudan. It's oil they're fighting over. If there is a war in South Sudan, it'll be over oil, not over a boundary. It's oil that was the start of the war in Afghanistan, when the Afghanis threatened to build a pipeline to China, and the US said, don't you dare. It's oil that's the cause of most of the conflict in the Middle East, and who owns it, and who owns the governments, and who runs those governments. And you can't help but wonder if it isn't oil that's at the root of some of what's going on in Ethiopia. So we follow the trail of the money, we follow the trail of oil, and we draw attention to what we should be outraged by. We should never shy away from expressing our outrage when outrage is what we feel. When women are raped to the point where they cannot walk. When men, women, and children are murdered by oppressive regimes. When the murderous regime are treated as somehow a leader of African people, there is something wrong with that picture. And we have to make sure that every Canadian understands what's wrong with that picture. We do not want another Rwanda where we go back and look at it and say, oh gee, I wish I'd done something. We don't want another World War II. Don't forget there was an awful lot of atrocities that went on for a long time before the West woke up and did something about it. The United States didn't join that war until 1942, until after they were attacked. They just let those atrocities happen. Sometimes it takes courageous acts, sometimes it takes simple things, sometimes it just takes dogged determination, but you have to draw attention to the plight over and over and over again. People will eventually listen. I listened today and I was glad I was here. So, although I am one of those Westerners that were being talked about with a little bit of derision maybe earlier today, and I am a white face in a predominantly black crowd, I'm proud to be here. So I want you to put down on paper what it is you want our government to do, and deliver it to me, and I will deliver it to my leader. Now you need to be respectful. You need to understand that we don't have a whole lot of power, but yet, 2015 we will. But you also need to be realistic. What is it that Canada as a country can do? Canada as a country has a long and storied history of looking out for the little people, of trying to help other countries that need help, of sending our military not just to create wars, but to rebuild countries, to rebuild Haiti, to rebuild in Africa. Part of our job isn't just beating up on people, it's actually helping them with a hand up. And so we need to be reminded that that was once we were peacekeepers. I don't know if there's a word in Somali, but a nabad keeper, maybe. We were peacekeepers, and we need to regain that world-class respect that we had for so many years. When people saw that little Canadian flag on a backpack, they smiled and said, "Oh, you're not an American, you're a Canadian. That's good." And I'm afraid we might be losing that. And I want to make sure we don't. So once again, thank you so much for inviting me here. I've really enjoyed it. I hope I haven't spoken for too long. And I'll try and come up with a shorter bio next time. Thank you so much.